food yesterday. Good morning, Facebook, YouTube. Welcome to the day after Christmas, 2021, getting ready for 2022. Wow. It's hard to believe that it's 2022 already, 2022. But it's here. Winter has officially started. I hope we start getting some winter weather. Me personally, I know there's a lot of people that like this mild winter weather. I like to see some snow, and I like to see some cooler temperatures. But so as we start today, I just want to catch us up where we've been, where we are. We've been talking about the birth of Jesus. Started back with Zacharias because this particular portion started with Zacharias. Of course, we all know that the birth of Jesus actually started way back in Genesis when God told Satan that there's going to be a descendant that's going to crush your head, and that was the first of the start. We look in the Gospel of John, and John tells us, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. So in John's mind, that was when Jesus was born. But he was born in human form at this time. We started with Zacharias and the birth of John the Baptist, because he was the herald that had to go before Jesus, proclaiming the Messiah is coming, getting the people ready, repenting, ready to receive the message of the Messiah. And last week we talked a little bit about the messages that were given to Mary and Joseph, the angel Gabriel giving the message to Mary. We're told an angel. I'm kind of thinking that it was probably Gabriel. He was the one that was doing all of these messages anyway, to Zacharias, to Mary, and why would he not be the one to give it to Joseph also? Joseph's message was a little different from Zacharias and Mary's message, in the fact that with Zacharias was in ministry at the time. He was awake. He was in the temple, and Gabriel appeared to him. Mary was in her house doing something. We're not sure exactly what she was doing, and the angel came into the house. Gabriel came into the house. She was awake. They had their conversation. With Joseph was troubled with what he had just learned about Mary. Was she unfaithful? Was she unfaithful to him? What was he going to do? Was he going to put her away, divorce her? He really wasn't sure. He fell asleep, and in his sleep he had a dream. Gabriel came to him in a dream, just as real as when he came to Mary and when he came to Zacharias. Just as real. It was just in a different form. And that gives us a hope that, or a lesson that there's no particular way that God's going to talk to you. He's going to talk to you any way he thinks is the best fit for you at the time. So last week, we heard the messages from the angel. We got Mary and Joseph on their way from Nazareth to Bethlehem to be counted in the census. When we look at nativity plays and everything, and we think about the nativity, we kind of picture and have in our minds that Mary was 9 months, or getting very close to her 9th month of pregnancy, her due date, when they started their trek to Bethlehem. I'm not sure that was the case. Luke tells us that while they were there, if you'll look in Luke chapter 2. Let me see if I can find the verse real quick. Well, starting with verse 4 through 7. Joseph also went up from Galilee out of the city of Nazareth into Judea to the city of David, which is called Bethlehem, because he was of the house and lineage of David, to be registered with Mary, his betrothed wife, who was with child. So it was that while they were there, and that's the key phrase that I'm going on, while they were there, and as soon as they strolled into Bethlehem, she went into labor pains. While they were there, the days were completed for her to be delivered, and she brought forth her firstborn son and wrapped him in swaddling clothes and laid him in a manger, because there was no room for him in the inn. So they have made it to Bethlehem. Mary's pregnant. We know that Mary, after Gabriel talked to her, she went and visited with her cousin Elizabeth, stayed with her 3 months. So she comes back, and she's in her 4th month at least, because the trip to Elizabeth's was probably a 5-day, maybe a 7-day trip, week-long trip in those days, because it was about 80 to 90 miles, somewhere along in there. So a week there, maybe a week coming back, and she stayed for 3 months. Did she leave immediately after Gabriel talked to her? These are things we don't know. We have to understand, though, that Luke wasn't really writing a history. He was writing an account of what had happened, and all he was really interested in were the important parts of it. So, anyway, they come into Bethlehem, and they're there, and her time for labor is here. She goes into labor. She has her firstborn son. Now, a key in both Matthew's version and in Luke's version is that Mary was a virgin. And there's a lot of people, they look back in the scripture, in the Old Testament, and say, oh, that word virgin really means a young woman. And yes, it could mean that. It could also mean a young woman who has never known a man, never had a sexual relationship with a man. Both Matthew and Luke, they clarify completely what this means. They both indicate that she, or not indicate, but say very plainly, she was a virgin. She hasn't known a man. Luke repeats it here in verse 6 or 7, I can't remember, that she brought forth her firstborn. And if she had not known Joseph beforehand, if she had not had a sexual relationship with Joseph beforehand, at this point she was still a virgin. And one thing we also need to remember, the conception of Jesus was the miraculous part of it. The birth was a natural birth. Once he was conceived, everything went naturally from there on out. He grew, he went through the different stages of growth inside the womb. He kicked his mama just like babies kick their mamas today. He came out, and it was a natural birth, and it was one. There was nothing special about the birth, except it was the birth of God in human form. And that's really the key part of what we're looking at here is God. Remember, the angel Gabriel said, "You will call him Emmanuel," or the prophecy was that he would be called Emmanuel, God with us. Now, no place in the New Testament is Jesus called Emmanuel.
No place in the New Testament. Okay.
No,
Really?
in the New Testament. But he is referred to as God's present with us. He is God incarnate. He is God in the flesh. Which, what does all that mean? It means God is with us, Emmanuel. So he is called Emmanuel, but he is named Jesus. And Jesus was a very common name. Like John was a very common name. Actually, as I was doing the research on it, Jesus in Hebrew, we pronounce it Yeshua, and it's a form of Yehoshua, which is also Joshua, Yahshua. So we go back to the Old Testament, and the successor to Moses was Joshua. He was God's salvation to Israel at that time. Jesus comes into the world, and he is called Yahushua. It's the full proper name. The Latin word is Jesus, Jesus. And we still see today, we see a lot of the Latin, a very common Latin name for male children is Jesus, which is Jesus in Spanish.
That throws me for a loop.
Yeah.
I hear that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Joshua, we look at Joshua, he's the salvation for Israel back after Moses. Jesus comes, he's the salvation of God for Israel, but he's more than that. He's the salvation for the entire world. He is the total salvation of God. Jews had a hard time understanding this. They still have a hard time understanding this. But when they understand it, watch out, because they understand it much more than what we understand it as, because of their culture, because of their upbringing, because of just everything that they have been preached about. Here is the answer. And Jesus was their answer. Jesus is born. Carla and I watched a video that we try to watch every year. It's called The Nativity. I'm sure you have seen it. And I love the way they depict it. I love everything about it. I do have some concerns about the accuracy, because they have the shepherds and the wise men coming to the manger at the same time on the same night of the birth. And that's just not the way.
But that's the way we've always been taught in Sunday school.
But that's the way we've been taught. You know, I don't know if we're taught that, but we are implied that.
Yes.
And when we
And the manger scenes have all
Every
of
Christmas
it.
play I ever saw,
Every-
the shepherds, the wise men, the animals, and Jesus was right there together.
and every
And always an angel.
every
Yes.
Christmas play, they have it that way. Because
Yeah. Yeah.
so, but Jesus is born in a lowly position. Jesus is a common name. I forgot to say this. Jesus is a very common name, Yeshua. Yeshua. A lot of kids were called Yeshua back then.
And the meaning is
God, our
our Savior.
God our Savior, or God
not
our
just God saved.
right. God our Savior.
How do you feel about people today even still naming their kids
Well,
that?
he said a lot of Hispanic
I know.
people.
A lot of
I
Hispanics.
said, but how do you feel about it? I mean, I can't imagine me calling my child Jesus in interpretation. I mean, it's just, to me, it's, you shouldn't do it.
But
I'm
Yeah.
sorry. And these
Whatever
people, when I
the
see
reason
Jose
they
and
have.
they say their name Jesus or whatever, I'm not for that.
Yeah.
It's just me.
Yeah. That doesn't bother me. In the Spanish culture, when they are worshiping, they really don't use the name Jesus. They will use another formal title. I can't think of what it is right off the top of my head. I should have that, but I can't think. But it's another formal title that they use,
Not a Hebrew title.
not a
but
Hebrew
another,
title.
A Hispanic
Right.
title.
It's like when they,
Might ask some of our workers.
yeah,
They're all Spanish.
when they refer to God,
Yeah.
many times they don't say Dios to God, Dios. Sometimes they do.
Uh-huh.
But most of the time in their prayer, they will just say El Señor. That is their proper reference to God. So, but I find it interesting that God chose the humble stable or a humble place.
Yeah.
Stable, cave, wherever it was. Remember, again, Luke's not writing a history. He's not giving us all the details. He's just telling us the story.
We know the word manger.
We know the
which
word
is
manger, which is a feeding
for the
trough.
animals, but we don't know what else was there.
What else was it? We don't even know if the animals themselves were there. Now, we sing the song Away in a Manger, and there's animals all around, but we don't know that for sure. And I do appreciate about that in the Nativity, they don't have any animals there.
I do on mine.
It
They-
did when I was growing
The
up.
donkey was there,
They,
right?
they
Donkey?
did have to shovel
Yeah.
dung to make room.
Yeah.
But
So that-
a very
that's
lowly
what I
place.
do, yeah.
A very lowly place gives him a very common name,
Well,
Jesus,
Yeah.
or Yeshua.
look at the way Jesus lived his life. He didn't stay at the Hiltons and the Marriotts.
No, he was
Step
poor.
under the trees,
so that we
step
might
under
be-
blankets, and he
Exactly.
didn't demand the finest when he went into town.
Never.
And that's what God is trying to teach us. Look, I came to serve you guys. I came to be your salvation. I came to save you. Yes, you worship me on high, but while I am in human form, I am here to serve you. I am here to do a job, and I do not want any special accolades because I'm rich. I wasn't born in Herod's temple, because then you would, you would have a harder time accepting me by faith. You would have a much easier time accepting me because of where I was born,
Right.
because I was one of the rich and famous. So Jesus comes to us in a very humble state, in a very humble place, to a very humble and poor parents, and
And it all fulfilled the prophecy.
it all fulfilled prophecy, every last detail. And when Luke and Matthew tell us this story, these are the points that they deem are very important. What prophecy was fulfilled? Well, it was fulfilled. She was a virgin. That prophecy was fulfilled. That's the important part. Both of them let us know she's a virgin. She has not had a sexual relationship with a man. She was born in Bethlehem. Got to come out of Bethlehem. That's prophecy. They were in Nazareth. They had to get to Bethlehem somehow. Caesar thought he was doing something for himself, but he was really doing God's work to get them to go to Bethlehem for the baby to be born. So all of these prophecies, even as a baby, before he walked on water, before he healed the first person, before he ever turned water into wine, he was still fulfilling prophecy. Even before he was born, he was fulfilling prophecy.
Well, he even had to prove prophecy one other way.
How's that?
When they said nothing good ever came out of Nazareth, he was born in Bethlehem, not Nazareth.
That's right. That's right. Exactly.
He lived in Nazareth.
They said, well, he's from Nazareth, and he was called a Nazarene
Yeah.
from being from Nazareth, not that he had taken the Nazarite vow. Maybe John the Baptist was born into that Nazarite vow, but Jesus didn't take it because we know he ate and he drank and he associated with people. He raised the dead. But that's where the story pretty much ends. We don't know a lot about Jesus from the time that we know that they left Bethlehem and went to Egypt, again to fulfill prophecy when it says that he came up out of Egypt. All of this was done. We don't know a lot about his childhood. We do know that at age 12, he was in the temple, and he had some idea at the time that he was anointed. So he's got to let people know, I'm about my Father's business. But we know nothing else until he comes into ministry time when John the Baptist sees him. So Jesus has a very humble birth, a very humble name, but man, what a mission does he have? I just got a message from Pastor Paul, so that's...
Is he listening?
No. So anyway, that's all for today. It was almost anticlimactic. His birth is almost anticlimactic because, well, you have all the angels announcing to the shepherds and the shepherds coming, that night of his birth, finding him. But then everything seems to just
fall into place, just like the prophecies.
Yeah.
Just like it said it would. No surprises, and that's good. We don't need surprises.
We don't need surprises.
With Jesus and prophecy, it's all there.
But you know who's going to be surprised? Those that
Oh, yeah.
don't believe in Jesus. I didn't think there was supposed to be a hell. Guess what?
It's going to be surprises for those who are non-believers. I don't think believers are going to be surprised.
Believers
we probably
won't.
will be surprised at just how beautiful heaven is.
We won't be surprised. The unbeliever will be surprised.
Yeah, the unbeliever could be real surprised.
Yes.
Well, what is so tantamount to me is that people everywhere need to know that every spirit, Satan, demons, angels, every human being that was ever conceived is eternal. There's no death. There's no destruction of any of God's creation.
Yes.
And I think, if they could just think that through, it would make a difference in how one's living their life.
Yeah. By now, you guys know how weird I think.
No, Lynn says you don't know weird, you know me.
Unfortunately, we have to undo the weirdness. Okay.
John 3:16 says, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believed in him should not perish,
Yes.
but have everlasting life." But everything I read, like you said, everybody has everlasting life. It's just where you're going to spend that eternity.
Existence.
Where you're going to have that existence at.
That is so. It just gets me every time.
Yeah.
I can tell you about weird, something I told Lynn this morning. I dreamed about 3 o'clock. I wasn't dreaming, I was awake and thinking. When you die, if you're a Christian, can I say this?
I don't know, but I think Jerry's in a hurry if you can get short.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah,
If you die and you go to heaven, when you go to heaven, do you go into like a train station and all the people they're announced, so you get your 2 minutes to meet people because there's somebody else fixing to come into the transfer portal, and you see your friends, and then they go back to what they're doing? Or
Remember, no time in heaven, honey. No have
Well,
time.
I'm just saying, you got your 2
It's-
minutes of glory.
It's
When,
not our.
when the heaven announces Bowen Harold arriving on portal 3, you have 3 minutes. And then there's somebody right behind you and all their family and friends are there for that few minutes and you kiss and hug and then go on about your business.
And then you live forever.
Well,
It's like that song, and I just want to see Jesus.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I just wanna
first
see
time.
Jesus.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I want
And
to
I
see
think-
Jesus.
And I think that's more of the way we're going to look at it, is that, you know, you hear, well, first thing I'm going to ask Jesus when I get to heaven. It's not. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to fall on your face.
Yes, on your knees.
And it may be centuries before you ever get up.
Yeah.
you're gonna have to start with some of the little boys and work yourself up to Jesus.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
You know, Moses will be right up there with Jesus and Abraham, you know.
yeah.
You don't see them on the first day.
No.
I just have a feeling.
Those of you
it's
on
not what
YouTube,
I
we
would
thank you for
expect.
joining in. I've got to leave real quick,
I
so
don't
we
think
will
can
see you
comprehend
next
with our
year,
little bitty
same
human
time.
minds.
And you'll be
Bye.
over